We're not your normal SEC show. I'm sure you've already figured that out.
Yeah.
All right, pleased to be joined by Joe Cook inside Texas. Just met you, and we're welcoming you to the SEC. I know it's a year early, but hey, there's the Alabama game we're all excited about. So how's the SEC treating you so far?
It's been great. I really look forward to this trip and knew that there'd be a lot of intrigue. I know it's a big year for the league, but I think this is, having Texas presence here and having Texas at even spring meetings kind of is a first sign for a lot of people that this is real. This is less than 365 days away, and especially that Alabama game. That'll be a real first real sign of Texas traveling into SEC territory and starting to become a real member of the league.
One of the things we talked about is hopefully we don't lose this season because everybody's talking about next year and what the playoffs going to look like. Texas and Oklahoma coming in. What is Texas? I mean, what is that mentality right now? Like, hey, we got one more and then we're going over, or are we not even focused? We're just dialed in to Big 12 play.
So if you remember that June day where they released the opponents for 2024, all the Texas players and Steve Sarkisian tweeted out the 2023 schedule.
Yeah.
And they're showing that they're trying to keep their focus on the 2023 schedule. And Steve Sarkisian's been speaking in April and May, even the past couple of weeks at Big 12 Media Days and other events to where, that's exciting. It's fun that we're going to be there. But Texas is in the Big 12 in 2023, and their goal is to leave the Big 12 as champions like they entered as champions in 96. It's to leave as champions like they left the Southwest Conference as champions in 95. They're building the program, I think, in a way that tries to set them up well for a future in the SEC, but they're trying to win the Big 12 before because that's the league they're members of right now.
How big is that Week 2 game, though, at Alabama? I mean, they should have beat Alabama last year, in my opinion, and we thought Texas was going to get their ass kicked. I'll just tell you, we thought there no
Vegas
shot,
did too.
No shot against Alabama, and like I said, they should have beat them. How big of a measuring stick, or is it, do you think, for Steve Sarkisian and his program Week 2 going? Because it is at Alabama. I mean, they'll be a huge underdog again, but that doesn't mean there's a lot of doubt on Alabama too. So how much of a measuring stick is that game, do you think?
It definitely is one. It's the strongest. It's easily the strongest team on their schedule because their non-conference this year is Rice and then Wyoming, and those are two teams that are at various stages of the group of five. The next best team on their schedule may be Oklahoma, or it could be Kansas State. So they're going to know right away whether all their preparations and all their expectations are going to be how attainable, I guess, they're going to be. Luckily for Texas, last year that game didn't count towards conference play. Luckily for them this year, it didn't count towards conference play, so if they can't leave Bryant-Denny with the win, they'll know, and they would prefer to leave with the win, obviously. But it is a good way to measure up how they feel they're gonna be able to operate in the SEC, because it's going to include a lot of linemen that Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood recruited. Very different than the way Tom Herman recruited linemen, gets a lot more bigger-bodied guys. It's going to test a defensive front that returns a lot of players but doesn't have outstanding edge rushers. And it's going to be a big test for Quinn Ewers because he doesn't have the crutch of Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson to lean on like he did last year. He's going to have to do his fair share a little bit more than he did last year leading the offense. So, and there's no better secondary to test that out against in Alabama this upcoming year. So it should be a real big way to see if they're ready, but at the same time, it's not going to be a be all end all for what their 2023 looks like.
Hey, we got a lot of Aggie followers. How bad do you want to kick their ass?
There are so many people who are glad that game is back, because the best way I can think about describing it is, let's say you live in Mobile, and okay, it's Thanksgiving, you got the turkey out, you cook, you go to bed, you wake up, and you're watching the Iron Bowl. You can set your calendar to it every single year, and for the past 10 years, you haven't been able to do that. I know Texas A&M's tried to replicate that with LSU, and there's been some pretty impressive games, but that is one-sided. LSU, from my perspective, doesn't view Texas A&M the same way that Texas A&M views LSU. And for as many people want to say, oh, we don't care, oh, let them go, oh, let them be, we're better. No, this game is so it's perfect that it's back. It needed to happen. It needed to be a conference game. It didn't need to be a low-level bowl or anything like that. It needed to be a conference game. And I think if you ask a lot of Texas fans, they don't mind the fact that the first one's in College Station. They're just glad that it's back. They didn't clamor for anything. And, hey, Ross Bjork did, and he got his way, and good for him. But
they're already talking.
But there are so many people that are glad it's back. They don't care whether it's they would prefer for it to be on Thanksgiving or the day after Thanksgiving. I think that's where it should be, and it's that level of rivalry for the people in Texas. Just because it's been around so long, it's been neighbor versus neighbor, all those different qualifications that you haven't been able to have the bragging rights about in 10 years. And they've played baseball, they've played basketball, they've played other sports, but there's only one place where it really matters, and that's on the football field.
Well, obviously that Texas A&M game, that's the one Texas fans are looking forward to the most in conference. But aside from that, who is that second team you think? Is it an Arkansas? Is it Bama? Is it maybe even Georgia or Tennessee? Who do Texas fans are they most looking forward to playing in the SEC?
Obviously, Texas has a long history with Arkansas, Southwest Conference days, game of the century with President Nixon there, all those different matchups that they've had over the years. I think Frank Broyles and Darrell Royal retired on the same day, so there's history there. But I think there's just a lot of intrigue for Texas fans, not on one particular team. Of course, having Georgia in Austin in 2024 is going to be a really fun game and one that's going to bring, I know Dog Nation travels, but Texas doesn't sell its tickets pretty easy to opposing fans. But I think there's just intrigue about being able to go to places like Oxford. Texas went in, I think, 2012. Played and won a game there. They haven't been to Starkville since, I think, the late 90s. I don't think they've ever been to Knoxville, and they haven't been to Gainesville since World War II. So there's so many different places that Texas either hasn't been in a long time or has never really been, that's what's got them interested. Arkansas is going to be a fun matchup. That's still going to be a rivalry. It was, is, continues to be. But I think just the idea of being able to go to so many new places and see why the SEC has a network, why there's that SEC podcast, all these different things. That's what has Texas fans really excited. And, the athletic department's pretty happy about a nice windfall that'll be coming its way down the road as well.
How big is this year for Sark? And I realize you don't cover A&M, but also for Jimbo. Like a year ago, if I would have asked you who's more likely to win an SEC title first, Texas or A&M, I think everybody would have said A&M. I'm asking SEC people now, a lot of them are saying Texas because of the momentum, but that can flip quickly. If they don't win the Big 12, if they stub their toe, if A&M has a big year, how big is this for Sarkisian and company with a season to come before going to the SEC?
It's a really big one. I mean, you look at both A&M, you look at Texas, they're at very crucial junctures in the direction of both their programs. Of course, Steve Sarkisian's about to enter year 3, had a very dismal year 1, and year 1s are always difficult, and improved in year 2. Jimbo Fisher had a 5-7 season in his 5th year. So these are very big junctures for both teams to prove that they're on the right trajectory, and Texas seems to be moving a little bit better in that trajectory now, record-wise at least, compared to A&M, and that's going to have effects in-state in recruiting because Texas obviously is a hotbed of talent, has great quarterback talent, great receiver talent, great cornerback talent, and so those are key positions in this league and in any league. So whoever is going to be able to show progress this year will have a leg up on being able to get some of those talents. Similar goes for Oklahoma. They had a very disappointing year last year. Again, year 1s are tough when you're rebuilding or restarting a program in essence. They go to Dallas and Fort Worth and even Houston a lot. They recruit Austin, which is a very interesting dynamic to think about. It's a big year for them to show that Brent Venables has progress, because if none of those 3 teams really do a whole lot, nothing impressive. If none of those teams are truly competing for a conference title this year, well, that means Bama can come in, as they have in years past. They've gotten guys like the Brockermeyers, who I know one transferred out. Jalen Milroe, who could start at quarterback. He's at Alabama. Even looking at places like, Georgia has started to come into Texas and grab some top talent. Lewis Seen played for a school in Dallas after moving down from New England. So it's a really big year, because if none of those 3 teams show a lot of progress, then teams like Alabama, teams like Georgia, teams like LSU, especially in the Houston area, can come in and start grabbing more guys. And that's not to say of what programs like Texas Tech and Baylor and TCU can try to do to prove that even in the Big 12 that they're a place to go for talent within the state of Texas. So it's massive, because if none of these teams are able to show a lot of momentum, then it's going to have its effect on the recruiting trail. I know Texas has done well. A&M obviously had its historic class a couple years ago, but now recruits want to see those results and see what comes to bear on the football field from those classes.
How big of a believer are you in Quinn Ewers? Because Sark just the other day said, hey, if all goes according to plan, he will be a first-round pick. I don't know if he was saying right away, but obviously I got to ask you about Arch Manning, because that's a big storyline. But if Arch Manning, let's say he starts a game, does that probably means Texas did not live up to the expectations? Do you think that's fair, or what's your thoughts on that?
You know, if Arch Manning starts a game, probably means two quarterbacks got hurt. I think right now Arch he's going to be contending for the backup quarterback position this spring or this fall with Malik Murphy, who had a real impressive spring game. But if Arch is starting games, that either means that his development curve was like a rocket ship, or that Quinn Ewers and Malik Murphy got hurt. As far as Quinn Ewers goes, it's really easy to doubt him. I get it. You know, he skipped his senior year of high school, didn't do more than be on the scout team at Ohio State. That's 2 years of real football, and that's, you know, you have to think about a little bit being on the scout team at Ohio State, but still, it's only just a scout team. They were concerned about Justin Fields and C.J. Stroud when he was there, if they even overlapped. So he arrives at Texas, wins a quarterback battle, and he has, you know, he goes through a problem right away with this injury he suffered when Dallas Turner drove him to the turf in Austin. Comes back and tears up Oklahoma and probably thinks, this is just like when I was throwing it around DFW and competing for the state title. Gets a little bit in his own head. Mechanics suffer. The team doesn't do as well. And I think at a certain point, Sarkisian realizes, okay, again, I got Bijan Robinson, I got Roschon Johnson. I'm going to use these guys. And Quinn maybe lost a little bit of confidence. We did hear over at Inside Texas that he had a really good month of bowl preparation. He had to do a lot because Bijan and Roschon weren't in that game. Passing game had a lot more pressure on it, and he did well, but he still played like a freshman, true freshman even though he had that year at Ohio State. So the expectations are high, and I think when you go back to early in the winter to seeing him shave the mullet and shave his beard and kind of look more presentable, you know, it's not like he's it doesn't mean that he's like, okay, new person, but it does show a little bit of like a, you know what, I'm here to take this seriously. I'm here for people to know me because I throw the football, not because I have a mullet and a weird looking beard. Yeah. And I think he's taken that onto the football field. It's why Steve Sarkisian named him a starter exiting spring ball, didn't even leave really the potential of a quarterback competition there for the fall camp. And by all accounts, he's done everything he's needed to do so far. But now the next step for him is to go win games and to be the quarterback that everybody from, you know, the ranking services to all the schools that offered him believed him to be in high school.
If Texas beats Alabama in Tuscaloosa, I know that's a big if, but if they do it, is it fair to set the expectation that they should make the college football playoff?
Probably. If they can take down Alabama in Tuscaloosa, it's hard for me to see a team on their schedule that can take them down in a similar way, because aside from that trip to Alabama, Texas only leaves the state of Texas one other time this year, and that's to go play at Iowa State. They still have to go to Baylor, which is a team that's going to want to beat them. Still have to go to TCU, again, a team that's going to want to beat them, and they have to go to Houston. Those aren't the most, you know, rowdiest of environments, but they are going to be rowdy that day for when they're there, and there's still something to be said about their home field advantage. But they're not going to have this like major travel schedule. They only play. Houston's the only new team in the Big 12 that they play, and honestly, I was surprised when he said this in May at a alumni event in Houston. Steve Sarkisian said, you know, we play U of H this year. Wouldn't it be nice if we played in Houston twice this year? and I kind of did the mental math and realized, oh, the national championship game's in Houston this year. And that's not something you really hear from Sarkisian often.
Right.
I think he understands that the expectations are to win a conference title this year, or to, at the very minimum, be in that game and competing in it. But to hear him just climb that top turnbuckle and go that far up, that was a shock to me. But I think that kind of indicates where he thinks the team could go if everything fires on all cylinders.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know if you can tell, but we like to eat. When we come down to Austin for some SEC football, where do we have to go?
All right, barbecue-wise, my favorite place, a place called Terry Black's.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the best. There's lines out the door, but it's worth waiting for. There's also La Barbecue's good. Franklin's good, but it's a little bit of a tourist trap, and that's not to say that its barbecue is bad, but I think you can find better stuff without having to wait all day. Tex-Mex, if you can get into Matt's El Rancho, that's the place to go. I grew up in Houston, big Tex-Mex town there, and I think Matt's has it beat. And there's a lot of different places. It's kind of a growing food city. If you're trying to look at the tailgate scene, the four main ones I know of are Schultz's Beer Garden, which has a bowling alley and is one of the oldest establishments in Texas. Posse East, Crown and Anchor, and then Haymaker, just on the other side of 35. So those would be my top tailgate places. Terry Black's for barbecue, and then Matt's El Rancho for Tex-Mex.
Well, we're planning the first time that Texas and Oklahoma meet as SEC opponents in the world, what it does, Texas State Fair. Mm-hmm. How should we plan to make the most of that first time at that event?
Man. So that's my favorite day of work every single year. Like I drive up to Dallas and I get there and I am just so excited to get there at 7:30 a.m. and hopefully they keep it at an 11 a.m. kick. That's a game that because a little bit of the surrounding area and because of the tradition, that needs to be during the daytime. Mm-hmm. But you go there, if you're sitting in the stands, before you make your stop in the stands, you buy some State Fair tickets and you get yourself a beer, get yourself a corn dog, and you just get ready for that game. And
sounds great already.
Yeah.
So and
keep going.
When you go into the Cotton Bowl, they have updated it some in recent years, but every seat's the same. There may be about 100 luxury seats in the whole stadium, and nobody cares because they're there just for that game. And it is, I think, maybe SEC fans may be familiar with the cocktail party and how they split it long ways. And it's in a pro stadium. I know it used to be in the Gator Bowl, but now it's in wherever, M&T Bank, wherever the Jaguars play now.
Right.
It is way different, and it is the most passionate I think both fan bases get on a given year. And the Texas runs out of the tunnel. They're surrounded by Oklahoma. They hear just a chorus of boos, and then they get to a certain point about the 40-yard line where it's all cheers. Yeah. And you can be on your own end zone, and it could be dead quiet, and then you can drive, and you can be on the opponent's 1-yard line, and it's like you're playing at a road environment. Yeah. There's truly nothing like it. And I remember one of the best stories I've heard about the Red River Shootout is that Bo Schembechler, Michigan head coach, after he retired, he started doing some work for ABC Sports, and they asked him, what do you want to do? What are some of the assignments you want? You kind of get to call the shots, Bo. And he said, I want to go to Texas, Oklahoma. And I think he made a remark like, he coached Michigan, Ohio State. Those are the 10-year war or whatever he had with Woody Hayes. And he says, there's nothing like this in all of college football. So it's a lot of fun. It is truly about 47,000 per side, and it is my favorite day of work every single year.
That's awesome.
Well, Joe, we appreciate you shedding some light on Texas. We're kind of ignorant when it comes to Texas, but we promise we're going to study them up this year. It's great to welcome you to the SEC. Before you go, can you tell the audience where to find all your work?
Yeah, we're part of On3. Head to InsideTexas.com, where all our social channels are Inside Texas, no spaces. And you can find me on Twitter. I'm at JosephCook89.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, thank you.